This week, we get into the concept of straight talking, saying what you mean, not leaving anything out, being direct, but also doing it with compassionate honesty, with my guest, Suzanne Waldron. Susan is a senior leader, human change facilitator, and a conference speaker, amongst many, many other things. Susan shares how she transformed some of her personal experiences and her concern of being misunderstood and flipped that into the focus of her passion and work that's centered on connecting senior leaders and leadership groups with their capacity to talk honestly and openly in direct yet compassionate manners. This is a really engaging and fascinating conversation that gets real deep and goes in lots of different spaces. I thoroughly enjoyed it. What becomes abundantly clear, however, is the overall imperative that we all take responsibility to develop our straight talk skills, to stop wasting time and live life to the fullest. So enjoy, Susan. Hello and welcome back to WA Real. I'm your host, Bryn Edwards. How often do you actually tell it like it is? How often do you tell it straight? And how often do you take the easy path, the path of least resistance, and keep that truth to yourself? That's what we're going to dive into today with my guest, Suzanne Waldron. Originally born in England, Susan moved to WA in 1999. Susan has spent 20 years as a senior leader, human change facilitator, conference speaker and advisor. Her special sauce is her vast understanding for the humanistic elements of the business world, and in that, straight talk as the new EQ that separates the good from the great. Susan has also written 2 books, A Flourishing Mind, exploring her personal story of adversity as a foster child and homeless teenager, and her second book, Say What You Mean, as a guide for better working relationships in senior leadership teams through the art of straight talk. In addition to all of this, she has a wealth of achievements and accolades, including Ambassador and Chair for Are You OK?, Director and Co-founder of Stories Out Loud, and nominated for Western Australian of the Year 2016, as well as nominated for 40 Under 40 in 2016 and 17. Susan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So one of the questions I always ask my guests at the start, because it's called WA Real, is how did you end up in Western Australia?
Well, my then boyfriend at the time was asked to come over to Melbourne.
Yep.
And he asked me to go with him. I was all of 17. And then about 3 years into Melbourne, we decided, we did not come all this way to just live in Melbourne. So I closed my eyes and pointed on a map, and I landed in Kalgoorlie.
All right.
And he was wise enough to just move my finger to Perth.
Right. So what was it about, we haven't come all this way to live in Melbourne? What does Perth have that Melbourne didn't, that made you think, or what did Melbourne not have?
Well, we didn't know we were coming to Perth because I literally eyes closed on the map. Yeah, it's not that Melbourne didn't have anything. It was more around that we were young and were settling, and we wanted to keep going, keep moving, keep travelling. So I would have only been 20 at the time,
right? And
so we wanted to just move and keep going.
And then you stayed here.
Yeah.
And is this home now?
This is very much home. I'm very connected to the land, very connected to WA, and it means actually a great deal to me.
In what way?
For quite a long time, I probably dismissed WA, thinking it was vast and boring. I think a lot of people do, or did. And I suppose I like undulation, I like variety, and the land, in my view at that time, didn't really give that. You drive hours and hours and hours, and you get somewhere and you see something for like 3 minutes and go, right, well, I've seen that now. And I didn't really appreciate all of the ecosystems and the micro moments that can happen in such vast land.
Like the bit in between.
Yeah. And, well, if that's not a moment for saying it's enjoy the journey, not just the destination. And then as time went on, I also became very connected to our Indigenous culture, and really started to appreciate and understand like how unique our landscape is, as well as the beauty of 65,000 years worth of wisdom that comes from the oldest living culture in the world.
So I'm curious, what are some of the key bits of wisdom that you've taken out of your learnings?
Yeah. So when I think about Indigenous culture and all the people that I work with who are Indigenous, what I love is that their entire existence has always been of a peaceful nature. And when I think about the little that I know, think about the customs and the traditions that are very self-resourceful. And so there's a lot of customs and ways of being, not only spiritually, emotionally and physically, that lends itself to them being around for the longest culture in the world and peacefully. They didn't fight anybody, they lived and resourced for themselves in a way that was really quite magnificent, and continue to do so with a completely new and different sort of interaction with non-Aboriginal Indigenous people. And then when you listen to their stories and their ways of being, I think it's fascinating the depth of spirit and the wisdom of how they've connected and looked after themselves for a very long time. And I think we've got a lot to learn about bringing that into today's practice in our very busy world.
I like that. I like that. I had Dr. Richard Wally on the show before, and he said something very similar about, when the original people at land, the real explorers landed, that they were greeted with a culture which had no need for governments, no need for jails, no need for prisons, no need for police, no need for any of the stuff that we have brought along.
And so I've been in the room with people, groups of elders and all sorts of Indigenous people at different levels, and it never ceases to amaze me, the humour and the generosity and the love that they extend. I was doing a program with some Indigenous people, and it was only at the end of day 2 that I realised I wasn't Indigenous. And I know that sounds really strange, but it literally at the end of day 2 I was like, oh my God, I'm white. Like I hadn't even thought of that.
How did that come about?
I think it was because of the inclusion that was offered to me. I also did acknowledgement to country whilst I was in the room, and I got really nervous about it because I'm used to doing acknowledgement because it's important to me, but I at that time had never done an acknowledgement to a group of Aboriginal people exclusively, and I stumbled myself around, I was stuttering, and then I stopped and I just went, okay, well I'm kind of fucking this up, and I know I am, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to ask you, can you feel what I mean? And literally there was tears, there was smiles, there was this outpouring of love towards me. They were just like, we're just so glad you just mean it. That's the most important. Not even had a crack, that you mean it.
Yes.
That you can see that you mean it. And that's what an acknowledgement is. And I was like, oh my God. And I learned so much in that moment. They were so beautiful.
They sent it in their heart.
Oh, because I was struggling because I meant it and I didn't know how to get the words out. I could feel it, but I couldn't say it. I've learned a lot more around the language now of what I need to say, or what I feel like I want to say. But then, I could only feel it, I hadn't yet articulated it. And it was just some beautiful moments. So WA is unique. It's beautiful. It's self-sufficient. And it's got a depth that I don't think we appreciate enough. It's my home now. Yeah.
So as I said in the introduction, you were raised as a foster child and had a period of time as a teenager being homeless.
Yeah.
How has that shaped you as a person now?
Well, I have got a very complicated childhood story. So I'll keep it as simple as I can because there's a lot of bits that weave in and out of it. But in particular, foster care actually shows me and helps me to consider the kindness of strangers and to be held by people who don't have to, as well as the complicating factors of being like a very troubled child when I was with them. I was about 8. I would sleepwalk. I was apparently told by the foster mum that I'd be trying to climb out top floor windows, things like that, in my sleep. I don't remember that. And I had actually had a nervous breakdown when I was with them, so I couldn't walk or talk. So they had a lot to deal with, just because I was very stressed in all the situational things that were happening in my life. So I think there's the kindness of strangers. I think there's knowing that, you know, there are people doing some incredible things. So it's given me lessons also. There's a story actually that's come to my mind about a time when it was Christmas time and my mum had left me presents under the tree in their house for Christmas, but she hadn't wrapped them, and there was a card and she hadn't written in it. It was still in its like plastic wrapping, and my foster mum actually left them all underneath the tree as they were presented to her. And in book clubs, when people read about this is a good book club moment, like, would you have, as the foster mum, wrapped them and pretended that they had been wrapped and written in the card, or would you have left them as they were? And I actually really appreciate that she left them as they were, because it was a lesson in honesty. Yes. It was a lesson in not hiding, and a lesson in helping someone through, even though they were very young, truly sort of seeing the situation for what it is. So whilst it was a shit situation, it was beautifully handled, and I actually really admire it.
So you've described that really quite beautifully. Can you give me an insight into the journey of going from taking something that's shit into something that's almost part of your, you know, what makes you great? Because I'm sure you didn't see it like that at the time.
I was 8.
Yeah.
So I cried.
Yes.
Well, it's a big jump. A lot of things happen. I've always had to be a survivor. And so there's one thing there's probably more than one thing I know, but I do know this. I wouldn't change anything. Anything in my life ever. Nothing. Change nothing. Because everything that occurs is there for you to experience, to provide positive tension, to learn. It's all just a game anyway, really, life, you know. It's a game. And
I've likened it to a great big game of hide and seek.
Yay!
Role play and hide and seek.
Yay! Yeah, I agree. And also, I was watching this thing the other night, and it did this zoom into the particles in our body, and it's like, if you go down to the most molecular part of yourself, the particles within you that you cannot see, it's all just lots of little bits of energy, like shooting around, like shooting stars, and nothing in you is actually still. Nothing in you is solid. And we share it all, you know? And so if I think about that, I'm like, we're just this floating mass of change. And all we do is construct meaning on top of that. And so I think from there to here, I've been resourceful.
And you've learned the resources within you.
Yeah. Yep. And I still don't know what I'm doing, but I don't know who does. And then I'll die. So you might as well go for it.
Absolutely. I like that. I've read before that the universe is inherently meaningless. It's we that give it meaning.
We do give it meaning.
The way we interpret it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. So, is it those experiences that have fueled your focus on straight talk?
Yeah. So Say What You Mean is the book that's coming, by the way. So don't want to pretend that it's written, because it's not.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Got the table of contents.
Have you got to have a straight talk with yourself about getting it done?
No, not at all. It's due next year, so it's all good. I'm on track. So I walked into a room of peers, and basically this lady said to me, "What's your big word in life? What's your big word? You know, what's your life about?" And I went, "Relatability." And she kind of paused and looked at me and said, "How do you feel about that?" And there was this pause where I just felt a little bit average, a bit bland. And she said, "I think big words are supposed to, liven you up and shoot like electricity through your body and enable you to feel like you're just so alive that you can't possibly sit still." And I sort of looked at her and thought, I didn't really feel that when I said it. And so she said, "Oh, I've got a question for you then. What's the opposite of relatability?" And it took me aback. And I felt this feeling like come up from the pit of my stomach, and it was really like turbulent, but my mind couldn't keep up. And so I said, "Don't know. I think I just need to just have a little break quickly." And so I went to the toilet in the hotel that we were in, and I was in that moment where you're just in that subconscious break, and I thought, oh my God, the opposite of relatability is misunderstood. And I came out into the foyer and I said to her, "I've got my word." And she said, "Okay." And she was very calm, a very graceful lady. And she said, "Tell me what it is." And I said, "Misunderstood." And she started crying.
She did?
She did. And she said, "I felt that word from you." And she said, "And nobody wants to feel misunderstood." She said, where do you know that comes from?" And it got me emotional at the time. I know this story, but it was just realising that was what could drive this, being straight talk and say what you mean. And I said, because my mum was a compulsive liar, and I learned diplomacy at a very young age because I didn't want to show her up for lying, but I didn't want to be a liar. So I became very diplomatic and able to the fine line between truth and lies, but I hated being misunderstood. I'm so good at taking it on the chin. If I've done something wrong, I'm happy to be criticised most of the time. I say that, but I might get a bit hot-headed quickly, but I hate being accused of anything I haven't done, and I don't like being misunderstood. And it comes down to the fact that I had to deal with that a lot as a child. And so I realised that Say What You Mean and the work that I do about relationships between people is actually born from not wanting to feel misunderstood or wanting anyone else to feel misunderstood.
So I guess it's taking that rather darker period and turning it into something light, which then becomes your gift.
Yes, yeah. I take everything that's given to me. I don't think anything's wrong. I don't think anything's broken. Yeah. It is what it is, and it's what we place meaning on, and it's how we deal with it. Yeah.
So what is straight talk? Tell me. Or tell a listener that doesn't still not quite getting it.
Well, Straight Talk is simply my blog. So that's the name of my blog. But the essence of it is being able to have compassionate, direct conversations that stop you from wasting your time in life.
So you put the word compassionate in there.
Yeah.
So what does that mean, to have a compassionate?
It's to honour the other person as well as yourself. Because I think a lot of people like brutal honesty, which is not kind. That's just facts coming out fast or directly. So to me, saying what you mean needs to encompass like the entire context, environment, the human. So the truth can be told beautifully, even though it's hard. And it's how you respond to reactions and allow and enable each other, whoever's working relationships, family members, whoever the humans are, to have their experience, and for you to have your experience, and to always have positive intention behind what is said and why it's said. That's a skill set. There's a skill set, but it's also who you are, so who you are being to be able to do that. And I think you have to know yourself to be able to, and let's face it, the first person to start with say what you mean is to yourself.
I was going to bring this up.
Yeah, so that's always the starting point. I was walking around Hyde Park in Perth a few weeks ago, and I do like chants to myself, to say whatever it is that I'm working on at the time. And this particular one, I was saying, I'm stronger and more vibrant every day. Stronger and more vibrant every day. I was walking and walking and walking, and I was saying it, and I was active, and I was looking around, and it's beautiful. And then there was a second voice just up the top of my head. And if I could put a colour on it, it would be grey. And it was like a second script that was running. So I was saying these words out loud. And then the second script of words was, but love is hurtful. And I stopped like smack bang in the middle of the park and went, oh my God, there's another voice.
What does that mean?
Like, literally, could hear myself talking to myself. And I'm glad no one was behind me, because I probably would have clonked straight into them. But it shocked me to realise that I was saying these things to myself. And I think that's the stuff we need to learn. What are we saying? What's the truth of what we're saying to ourselves? Where's it coming from? What do we mean? And I hadn't had that experience for a long time.
What do you think that message meant, that love is hurtful?
Yeah, well, this is our big conversation that I warned you about. So existential crisis, that's happened to me in the last year. And I actually realised through a series of events that I haven't really been open to full, true love. I've been protecting myself for a very long time, very controlling, I'm a control freak, even though I can be a bit like that, but I mean, I didn't even realise I had a barrier up for even receiving and giving love without absolute pure joy and ecstasy and connection. It's always on some kind of term that I could control. So I'd had an experience,
because that was shielding you from
shielding me from pain, more loss, and also sort of there's been a lot of trauma in my life, so it's a neuro association to helping me to be protected. But it was buried so deep that I was able to look like I could love, which I can. I mean, I'm such a loving person.
Is it that sort of more cognitive feel of love than the actual?
And I'm loving, and I love everybody.
Feeling it in your absolute being.
And it's actually about receiving it. So, not actually being so fully raw and open that I could be taken on any kind of journey or that might risk. Right? I don't steer the ship in the most subtle little ways, not in a manipulative way. Didn't even know that I would felt like that. So I'd opened myself up to a person, and it was very fleeting, and I felt like actually a true, actual, spiritual, deep, emotional love, which shocked the hell out of me. And it all went a bit pear-shaped really quickly. I don't care. I was like, oh my God.
I felt this.
I felt love. I was like, wow. And then I went through this entire thing of going, okay, so I didn't know that I was doing that, and so what do I believe about love? What's actually happening here? So doing some self-talk. So I think it's important for us to recognise what we're saying to ourselves so that we have the opportunity to be real with one another in whatever the appropriate circumstances of that realness is.
So, how do you approach self-talk in like a business setting?
Yeah. taser. No, I'm joking. People say, how do you do it? Taser.
Get it out of here.
Yeah, electrocute people. What exactly do you want to know? Because there's many different ways in which I can answer that question. So can you narrow the question?
So I guess, for somebody who puts it out there that they bring this straight talk, and obviously there would be, and I've got my organisational hat on here.
Yeah.
There are benefits towards that sort of efficiency, time saves, how would you go about actually engaging with? Because it strikes me that by its very nature, and if you take what you just said about you didn't realise that you fully appreciated love until this almost like this mystery door opened, and then in it flooded, and I'm sure we've all had experiences like that where we're trucking along and we think things are great, and then all of a sudden from left field, bang, it's your time to have your door opened, and it's like, whoa. And it can be rough and raw and exposing and great, but to me they're the gold moments of the human experience. How does an organisation get to a point of recognition that that's what they need at that point? Do you see where I'm going?
I do.
Because you've got, I think we can all relate on one level to it on an individual level, but then you obviously put yourself out there as a business change person, etc. With this in amongst it, how do you actually engage an organisation, take them from that point of being unaware to aware, and then realising, oh shit, we've got a problem, we need to do this, and so open the door for them a bit. Does that help?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So firstly, I don't think of them as an organisation. I think of them as a group of people, humans, individual humans. I tend to work with senior leaders, so I don't do organisational change. So for me, my program is about peership. So it's about how people treat each other in the team that they're in. And generally, I get into conversations with CEOs and GMs who know that they're struggling to cohese. So they usually come to me with what's happening, and that's often mistrust, or people are sort of colliding or even missing each other. Or sometimes, like it's not a massive problem, but there's about to be a merger, or there's about to be a takeover, or there's a really big new project and everyone needs to be on their A game. And because that change is happening, so there's either there's a dysfunctional team, or there's a new team that needs to form, and if we don't turn a blind eye early, then we might be a little bit fucked in the future. So basically those are the two scenarios, and essentially I don't beat around the bush, as you can imagine. I go deep very quickly in my conversations with people, and anyone who can't cope with that, well, then I am not the right person. It is the quickest way to change, and I do it with love, literally. I genuinely do it with love. And a lot of rapport and a lot of trust and a lot of respect. And it's not leadership training, it's human training. And
that's what's coming out.
Yeah. It took me ages to realise that.
Yes.
I was like, I'm in leadership, blah, 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 leadership, blah, 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 blah. No. And I'm like, no, I'm not. No. I work with leaders, but I'm a relationship person. I'm a human relationship person. It took me ages to work that out. And then when I did work that out, though, flow was beautiful.
Yes.
My work went, shung. It was fabulous.
I'm now focused.
Yeah, and people go, it's very niche, and it's very easy for them to understand what I do.
Yes.
They don't have to go, what do you do training, or do you what? And it's very clear. And so I have a really specific process that I go through with organisational teams at the senior level. But essentially, someone asked me, what's the essence of what you do? And I said, I call people to a higher moral ground. And then we talk about it with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Because I don't want anyone to look back upon their life and get to the age of which they're about to pass into another world or die or whatever you want to hear, whatever you believe, and look back and go, well, I wasn't who I was supposed to be.
Yeah. Shit, I missed that.
I missed it. Because a lot of people go, what I wanted to do, and I'm like, yeah, but what you want to do comes out of who you are. And so surely we must work at the who. You don't just get a cake, the ingredients have to go into the cake. So what are the ingredients? Like the who becomes the what. And quite often, you know, people like, we've got to be strategic, and, you know, I love strategy, I love business, I love commercial acumen. But you can't pick a strategy up. I can't hand you the strategy to go, like, it's not a relay. I can't pass it on to you. It's an idea. It's a thought, it's an idea. So for people, if they really, because the ultimate thing that I love and I work on is progress. Like, progress and evolution is happiness. Human needs, as you know, the fundamental things are around contribution and growth. And so if we're making up stories in our heads about one another with positive intention, because we, you know, that's what we do, and we're having weird relationships both at home and at work, and we're not fully, I call it being clean in our neurology,
Yes.
then we're wasting time.
And it is as simple as that.
It is as simple as that.
It is as simple as that.
Yeah.
From doing more and more and more of these podcasts and some other stuff I'm up to, I find in everyday life, you know, we're either talking about having a conversation of substance, or we're just pissing about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's pretty blunt.
Yeah.
And it can be quite confronting to those around.
Yeah. And so you've got to take care of people in that process as well, you know.
Yeah.
I do.
Yes.
Like in my work, yeah.
Yeah, in your work.
Yeah. Not on the street, no, I just shout at people in the street. No, I'm joking.
Well, you can choose. But then you can choose to be in that, you know, outside of it, you can choose to be in that conversation or not be in that conversation and respectfully withdraw. So what is it that, I mean, this is almost like, you know, one of the key essences or key skills of being a human being. So why don't we all have it?
We do.
So, okay, so if we do, why are you in a job?
It's like I was on the plane with a guy sitting next to me, not with him, he was just next to me, and I was drawing. I love art, and he said, "Oh, I'm not creative." I said, "Yes, you are." And he said, "Well, I was creative." And I said, "Yeah, you always have been. It's just you've forgotten." Think about kids and how they just say what they see. You know, that we teach them social filters. So I think our natural predisposition is actually to come to our senses, so being that we're taking information through our senses, and we can be factual about things, and then we learn social norms and social filters and what's appropriate through different cultures. You know, you might see Europeans or Africans or different people in different cultures act in different ways. And so it's just about how we fit into the group. So I genuinely actually think we've all got it. We just cover it up and forget.
Yes.
And then it is a skill set as well. So, you know, you can be blunt or you can be compassionate. You know, so there's ways of learning language.
Yes.
There's ways of learning who you need to be able to cope with yourself and other people. So I'm not being facetious, but we all have it. We just have to remember and then practice it.
I think often we do have these moments of like, I'm just going to speak the truth, and it comes out quite forcefully.
Yeah.
And it bruises everyone around.
Yes.
And yeah, I did a little thought piece about this recently. Stuff comes out, it's quite blunt because everyone's used to like, oh, I won't upset you. I won't upset the people around me. But then it gets like, oh, I've got to say something. So you do, and then everyone gets bruised. You feel really bad about it. then you rush in to try and placate everybody, and then you shortcut everyone's capacity to develop their own strategies for dealing with hard stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just you start off with a good intent and then just fuck everything up all around. For yourself, for everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, and it's easy with a loved one where you say something and then you can see that they're like, oh, I didn't, you know, that hurt.
Yeah.
It's coming from someone really close, and they say, no, but it's all right, love. You know, it's okay. Or with your children, and then you shortcut the capacity for them to go, oh, I've got to deal with some tough feedback, otherwise the relationship's not going to go forwards and stuff like that.
Yes.
So yeah, it is a skill.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of what. How does somebody start to bring this out of themselves?
Well, I think firstly, you've got to see the value in it. You know, like everything's got to be worth your time. So, is there anything showing up around you that indicates that you might be hiding from yourself or from other people in a workplace in particular? You know, are you procrastinating on having a conversation in your family life? Is there anything that is playing out that you're not really happy about? And if that's the case, it's about catching those feelings and those emotions and then digging a bit deeper into what's driving that.
Do you think deep down we all know the areas where we're not saying how we feel, being straight?
Well, yes and no. So a few weeks ago, I would have said yes, and then of course I had my second script moment, which completely caught me off guard. And so I don't even know if deep down I was aware.
Yes.
So I don't know the answer to that question at the moment because I'm in transition of my knowledge a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that we have access to it. So people always say, you know, how do you change something? I was like, well, look at what the facts are. It's in what's occurring around you. What are your moods? What are you producing? How is your body? What are your relationships like? How is your work? So look at what your output is.
Yes.
Because your output is going to be indicative of what your input is. And then when you look at your input being how do I think? How do I move? What do I believe? How do I interact? Individually, introspectively, and, you know, outside of myself. And then you'll get some, if there's gaps, awesome. Because then you go, okay, so there's a gap. Or there's something that's not working. And it's about like digging down to the root cause. Looking at our neuro associations about what it is that we are plugging into ourselves. Because you know, our fundamental drive is to be away from pain and towards pleasure. And so quite often though there's that secondary gain. There we do something that's not cool, and it, you know, like eating too much is my favourite example. And we know we shouldn't be doing it, yet it's sending blood to our stomach and it makes us feel like we're not in fight or flight. And so it's a security or a safety, different for everybody, but fundamentally probably around that. So why do we do it? Because the pleasure of that is security. So the pleasure will override the pain until the pain comes too much. We might be getting a heart attack, or we might not be able to move as well, or whatever, you know, just make all that stuff up, whatever it is for that person. And so there's this dance we're all doing with everything, even with our emotions, our language, our feelings. Everything that we do is either driving us from pain or towards pleasure. And it's about tapping into what web have we weaved in our patterns of thinking and patterns of belief systems that have gotten us to this point, and what needs to change so that we can circumvent, because we're just a pattern making machine.
Yes.
So it's about how do we interrupt that, and what's compelling enough to interrupt it.
Those patterns are what when I said earlier on, we were talking about, you know, life's one big game, and I referred to it as hide and seek. That's the hiding. The hiding and seeking from ourselves, those patterns, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so long ago, I was introduced to the concept of, if there's some area of your life that you're not happy with, ask yourself, what is it I believe about myself to allow this situation to be as it is?
Yes.
That's a pretty interesting indicator.
Okay, Karen, I'm going to talk about this.
Go on.
I'm going to go straight there, deep. I'm going to reveal myself fully. Are you ready?
Do it.
Okay, I'm ready.
That's why it's called WA Real.
Okay, good. I know, but I just want to make sure everyone else is ready because I'm going to go there. Probably, to be quite frank, nobody else cares. It's more about my vulnerability that I'm a bit nervous about. But so in that sense, so I had been with my husband for 21 years, and we split last year. I left. He is very happy, and it was the best thing that happened for both of us. So that's good. With friends, you know, I just want to, in case he listens, we're good. But what I realised in my, you know, I haven't been really fully letting love in. In that moment, I was like, but like attracts like. You know, in my new relationships or my new experiences and all those things. And I've been, you know, having a great time with different people. And I kind of realised, I want something more. I'm ready for that depth, that pure joy, that pure love, that big love, that real, you know, let's do life together person. And I don't know if you get, I think you've got lots of ones, but, you know, I'm sort of good with a one again, someone. And then I had to take a look at that and go, so who are you being to attract what you need? Like, who do you need to be? And I don't think we as humans take enough stock around, I want to say responsibility, but also know that there's more than just you in life. So if we take full responsibility, we set ourselves up for fail, because there's universal, ecological, spiritual input. It's not all up to us, in my belief. But we have a fair chunk of control over, you know, how we regenerate ourselves constantly. Our bodies are completely regenerated every year, physically. And we're constantly connected to a collective consciousness. And so, who are we being to get the thing that we need to interact with? And it was a moment where I was like, oh my God, I have to take responsibility for what comes at me.
Yes.
Or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you are either putting up shields to stop the things that you want coming towards you, and they will be within your belief patterns, or the things that are hanging around, you are believing that they should hang around, that you want to piss off.
Yeah.
And that is extraordinarily empowering when you come to that realisation.
Yeah.
And then you can start to take 100% responsibility for who you are and what you choose and how you respond.
Yeah.
And it comes back to what you put out, you receive.
That's right.
You know, it's back to that very simple analogy of looking in the mirror and expecting the reflection to smile first before you're going to smile.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
I've
because
not heard
it's just not going to happen, is it? You've got to smile first, and then you'll see it. Because if we touched on it before this, you know, you go back to, you start drawing parallels through some of the other podcasts that I've done. You go to Professor Igor Bryn, you look at quantum physics. Well, yeah, the molecules which you referred to earlier on that we're all made of, they collapse when we look at them. Before that, they're just a sea of potential.
Isn't it incredible? Whenever I think like this, all I feel is abundant possibility.
Well, there is.
But what can happen is we can overwhelm ourselves. So I've been here too, and I see other people do it, but that we don't keep it simple enough. So, like, my mentor, love them. I've got many mentors, but one particular, Matt Church, says, hold on tight with an open palm.
Yes.
Because it can become so overwhelming. And Alain de Botton, gentler kind of version of Success TED Talk, he says, you know, we used to worship the stars would guide us. And then religion, so, you know, God or whoever the person that we worshipped or the spirit that we worship will guide us. And then as we got more mature or evolved in our brain structures, we started to realise that we were actually in control to a certain degree. He is an atheist, so forgive me if there's other beliefs out there. And from that perspective, we're the first series of humans that have worshipped ourselves. And so we actually take a fair chunk of responsibility for ourselves, but the problem with that is that we take responsibility for our success but also our failure. And so sometimes, though, we succeed and fail due to circumstances, environmental factors that are outside of ourselves. Like we're not there is universal things that happen beyond our conscious awareness. And so
our conscious awareness.
Our conscious awareness. And I wonder even our subconscious awareness. I don't know the answer to that.
We can ponder on that afterwards.
That'll be round 2 conversation.
Yes.
But my point is that it can become overwhelming or feel too big, and then procrastination sets in because people don't know where to start. And my thinking is, just remember, the only thing we have is this present moment. Everything else is a construct. We find ourselves reminiscing or dreaming. All of those things are important, but how much time are we spending in the moment? Because the quality of our present moment determines the quality of our future.
Correct.
And keep it simple. That's my advice to myself, anyway.
Excellent. Because, I think I like what you were saying about hold on tight to what you want with an open palm. Is that,
Yeah, Matt Church says that.
I think once we truly start to understand what's important to us, then we can actually feel what our bigger conscious goals actually are.
Yeah.
And we can remind ourselves of that, but not get attached to the journey.
Yes.
And by this thing the concept I was introduced to was follow your highest enthusiasm to the best of your abilities with no expectation of the outcome.
Yeah.
And your highest enthusiasm, and you know what it feels like, that becomes your compass point.
Yeah.
And that will lead you.
Yeah.
To scary places, but
and
great places.
And great places. Oh, the polarity of life. I heard Deepak Chopra say this morning, not himself, well, it was him saying it, but I wasn't there with him, he was on the podcast, but he said, the trick is to be certain and have expectations without attachment to the outcome.
Say that again.
The trick is to be certain about something, but have expectations, but without the attachment to the outcome.
Correct.
So directing your conscious and subconscious awareness to an outcome, your reticular activating system will do the work. It does all the filtering and searching for you.
Program yourself.
You just programming, yep. And sometimes things don't manifest because there's other things at play that you can or cannot see. And so put yourself in the direction and understand that attachment can often, because quite often we're actually, say we're going, I'll try an analogy, I'm not usually good at them on the fly, but let's try it. Going down the road, going down the freeway, you turn off and then suddenly there's roadworks and then you have to go on a diverted route. But on the diverted route, there might be something that you'd never thought of. I've got an even better one. Okay, so my flight got cancelled a couple of weeks ago. And I woke up to a text saying your flight's been cancelled. And my first initial reaction was, I'm going on an adventure. Because if something significant changes, I'm like, awesome, something's going to happen. That was not going to happen before. And so I'm being diverted. And I got on the plane, I was drawing, and I got on the second plane, and lo and behold, I met this amazing guy, went out on a date, was fabulous, won't go into the details, beautiful, like I wouldn't have been on that plane, and it was just an amazing experience. And so the thing is that sometimes if we're shitty about the diversion, we're not open. And so I think we set our sights, and we go, and the trick is...
keep that.
Yeah, and we hold on to it, and then we get diverted, and we miss the reason for the diversion because we're attached to the outcome. I just wanted to get to Sydney. It took me bloody 10 hours to get to Sydney, but it was worth it.
Yes. Yeah. A lot of our modern day stress is because the world is not mapping out exactly the way we want it to, as opposed to exactly what we discussed.
And that's why I'm always a bit sketchy or edgy around 100% responsibility. I think the 100% responsibility is to be in the moment, rather than to be
Yes.
so determined for the outcome.
Yes.
I think. I say that I think because in 20 minutes I could learn something new and it changes, but that's what I believe.
Because I'm becoming more and more around, you are responsible.
Yeah. I went there and then I came back a bit. Because we are, and I think there might be a little bit more to it than that. But I don't know yet.
Depends how connected we are to all the other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hypothetically, how do you think WA as a state would be if we all notched on our real talk by, let's say, 5 or 10% hypothetically?
I think there would be more joy is the word that's coming for me. Like, joy is amazing, isn't it? You know, like to feel completely enamoured by something or in awe of something or curious. It always leads to progress for me. Like, so if we have more joy, then we might have more curiosity, and then we might have more capacity, which leads us to evolution.
Do we become a more evolved state?
Yeah, and so then we might be more open or more considering, or in a place where we're not on the hamster wheel as much. Would just be nicer, like, frankly. Wouldn't it be just lovely to just not be holding
anything? Do you think
anything?
we'd be more productive?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's progress, isn't it?
Get shit done.
Productivity, yeah, totally. And
Do you think it might diversify what goes on in the state as well, beyond just digging up shit out of the ground and monetising it?
Oh, yeah, but we don't just do that already. There's a lot of stuff.
I'm being provocative.
I know, and I'm going to slap you. I'll stick up for our state. I'm joking, because you're doing this for our state. It's fabulous.
Yeah, and it is I think it's a valid question, because I, like you, this is my home. I'm very passionate about it. I, like you, wasn't born here but chose to move here and have now made it its home, made it my home. And because I feel attached to it and the land and the people, it's always, and within my nature of how can we do stuff better? How can we be not just efficient and productive, but how can we be better and better versions of ourselves, and as a collective, as a state? So what are some of the things that would make the state a better place? Not just economically, but for the point of economics, I think economics would improve as a byproduct of some of this stuff.
Absolutely. And coming back to Indigenous as well, I'm working on a program called Cultural Curiosity, and that's again about respecting and understanding difference between cultures with an Indigenous frame, but not limited to Indigenous, and how when we accept and relate and engage with one another, we've got more time to do more things.
Yes.
I don't know how to make it more simple than that. And prejudice and restrictive and protective views come from an individual's need to control and protect, which I fully understand, and I'd like to help break that down so that people can have more joyful lives, because I do believe that, I keep saying joy, I'm just going to go with it, I don't usually say it all the time, but yeah. But I think, like, if the moment really is the moment, then surely only joy can be in the moment if you look at what's around you. And if we look around us right now, in this moment, without projecting what we're about to say or thinking about what has been,
yes,
like looking at the colours in the room and smelling the smell and feeling the feeling of the energy exchange, like there's nothing here that's wrong or bad or broken. And no matter what is here or who is here. And I know there's crappy circumstances where someone might get into a scary situation, or someone might walk in the room and start shouting at us or something, and that would change. The moment would not be joyful. I get that.
Well, finding the joy would be more challenging.
Yes. Well, it does depend on your frame. I suppose you might like shouting people. I'm not opposed to it, I suppose, but we would have that protective flight or fight or freeze response, so that would change the chemistry. But so I think when we get to that space, I think economically, spiritually, emotionally, physically.
What does because I like to ask a contribute from time to time, what does life look like if people like yourself don't promote this sort of stuff?
Well, that already exists in countries that are war-torn, where people have to flee for their life. It's all very lovely sitting here in this beautiful room. There are plenty of other places that don't have the luxury of being able to be, I suppose, wistful in joy. And I say that only because if people are having to fight for their life to live, not being covered up in rubble, being shot, or all those sorts of things, then there's a pecking order of things. My friend was caught up in the earthquake in Nepal, and she was with this guide, and they were trapped between mountains, and his family were on the other side, and he didn't know whether they were alive. And she came out in that moment into the courtyard, and he was on the ground planting flowers, or seeds, sorry. And she said, "Why are you doing that now?" And he said, "Well, the flowers and the plants still need to grow, and there's nothing else I can do right now." And she said in that moment, like, holy moly. So even in those scenarios, I think there's potential to be in the moment. But on the contrary view, there's barriers in many places that stop us from progressing. And it might be a bigger question than I know how to answer.
How has creating the opportunity through your work and what you do to be able to explore this further and further, which is great, how has this changed your sense of identity about yourself?
Oh my God. Am I even here? Who am I?
It's a bit more tangible than that.
Oh, now you're shaping my answers, I see. Did you hear that, listeners? I'm playing. Okay, I'll do this in a descriptive way, but I'm going to do it physically as well. But so I've learned that often there is me, so I am absolutely 100% who I am, with no barrier, no idealized version. And then sometimes there's one that's another version of me, like a shadow version of me, or a second version of me that's right in front of me. And so there's me, and then there's another casing.
Yes.
That's a little bit further out. And then sometimes there's one that's really far in front of me. And that's my big protective barrier.
Right.
That one is gone. So now there's a couple of versions of me. There's the who I am in my most vulnerable state, and also one that sits just in front of me that has a slight alertness on it for just check-in in an idealized version, protective version. So this has removed my very far away identity mask, because that I didn't realise that was there, but that's gone.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. But it's also I had this incredible experience when my husband and I separated. I thought I would, because I was with him for 21 years, so from 17 to 38, and I thought that I would be with him till I died. Like I would love him in that way until I died, until he died as well. And then when that changed and then we separated, I thought, if there's one thing in the world that's true, that's true. And then when that wasn't true in that form anymore, it made me think, well, then what else is not true?
Mm.
And so my identity has, through the trauma of my childhood, through the safety of a marriage, to breaking through that and becoming, highly alone. I have no family, no blood relatives. Know him, know his family. Like, I'm absolutely 100% completely connected to the universe. Got beautiful friends, etc., etc. But
Yes.
in the deeper sense of, as we all are, by the way, I'm not a figure on yet. So my identity shifts constantly.
That is what you've learned about your sense of identity.
Yeah, as does all of ours. But I tend to do it on steroids. Yeah.
Because you've made it the focus of what you do to make it something that you reflect on, do, and complete the learning circle on a daily, hourly basis.
So that I can help others, and also because I'm a bit of an efficiency queen. I like to get things done, and I like to move on, and I like to be effective and evolve and progress. And there's some things I've learned you can't control the pace of, which frustrates me.
Yeah, like other people's development.
Like my own, actually.
Yes.
Other people's, they can take their own responsibility.
Indeed.
It's actually, I've got to go through this lesson for a bit longer. But I'm a cognitively...
I've not quite got it yet.
Yeah, I can say it, but like you said earlier, I cognitively get it until you feel it, until you're being it.
Yes.
And sometimes I'm like, I get it, come on, just be it now.
So what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for Suzanne?
Who knows? Who cares?
Oh, rough idea. Have a stab at the answer.
I'm like, I'm bored now. Okay. I don't like...
You get to act like that when
projecting.
I come on your podcast.
And once again, you're shaping it.
I'm just directing.
Okay. I'm only being slightly facetious. There's part of me that goes, so I am a future-focused person, but, as I come along in life, I think to myself, I don't care about 3 to 5 years, because so much is going to change. But there's one thing that is a theme throughout my entire being, and that is, I think why I'm on this earth is to really help people look at who they are and be the absolute true self that allows them to evolve and progress, and that our genes are as clean as possible, so that when we procreate or we exchange, it doesn't always have to be about giving birth, but when we exchange energy and connection with one another, that we're giving it the best shot we possibly can. And so how that looks for me, I'll write books, I'll travel the world with clients, I'll curate for TEDx Perth and do documentaries and have relationships and see the sights, and all of that changes. So I'll do that until I don't do that anymore. But fundamentally, it will be about how do I contribute and interact with people in a way that's meaningful till I die.
Are there things you do on a daily basis to keep you focused,
sane
and on the track, and
yes,
things that help you stay focused and be the best you?
So between 7 and 9 a.m. every morning is completely blocked out in my calendar, so no one can put anything in it other than me, and I try not to break my own rules. A walk in the morning, and I also listen to a podcast, many different types of ones, and then I often do the homework associated to the podcast in that time. And I spend time thinking about what I'm grateful for, and what my intentions are for the day, and who I intend to be. And I always get a coffee from pretty much the same place. I travel a lot, so that can get interrupted a little bit sometimes. But when I'm in Perth particularly, that is a routine. And then I also make sure that 40% of my week, and I know that's not a daily basis, but 40% of my week is unallocated. From the time that I wake up to the time I go to sleep, 7 days. I don't see weekdays and weekends. That's not the way my mind works. Like, every day is valid and I do what I want, when I want. But 40% of that time is unallocated for painting, for drawing, for thinking, for having amazing conversations with random people on the street. Like, the guy that works with me, he often goes, everything's on Suzanne time, because when we're in unallocated time, I end up in conversations in the sushi shop, or see someone I haven't seen for ages and talk, end up hanging around with the Uber driver because I have to ask a lot of questions before we get out of the car. There's all sorts of things like that. So 40% of my time is unallocated so that I can just be creative and free and percolate on my aha moments. Yeah. Because I realised I wasn't joining the dots on a lot of things.
Yes.
Have a lot of aha moments all the time, but I don't get time to consolidate them. So that's more on a weekly basis, because one day, like today, for example, I've been awake since 3 o'clock and I am absolutely chockers until 10 p.m. That's it, and I have not had a minute to myself. So there are some days that are really full, and in other days you get that time. So that's why it's not a daily thing, because it doesn't always happen every day.
Yeah, it can't be. Yeah,
well, it can
but
be.
It's
could
just
be,
got
but
to
I
be
just
in
don't.
there during the week.
That's my choice still.
I like that. If there was a nugget of Suzanne's wisdom that she could just upload into the collective consciousness so everybody got it, what would that be?
Ooh.
You know, a bit like in the Matrix, where you
I love the Matrix.
I know Kung Fu. I know Kung Fu.
I know, how friggin' amazing is that? I'm feeling the pressure for this moment, and I feel like there's going to be a big silence on you. So I just need a moment to think about it. Okay, keep it simple.
There you go. Is that it?
No, well, no, but that's, 1.1, keep it simple. 1.2 is you are okay. And in fact, I heard this thing on that thing I was watching the other night, and this guy was dying, and his wife leaned in and she said, "What are you saying?" And he said, "Just remember that every morning when you lift your head from the pillow, you already have everything you need." And it would be remiss of me as an Are You OK ambassador that today is Are You OK Day, and to ask each other. That's it.
Suzanne, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation today. It's been great. It's been great. I've had a few ideas floating around, and strangely, I find with my podcast that some of the things that I'm thinking about, all of a sudden, they become the topic. Not that I wrote the questions down beforehand, but they suddenly become a topic of focus in the conversations. And today, there's been tons of it.
Yay.
I think there's absolute shit tons for a listener to listen to and think about and cogitate on and then take action. If somebody wanted to find you, where can they find you?
Tap into the ether. Just think of me and I'll arrive. Just LinkedIn or on my website. SuzanneWaldron.com.
Superb.
Yeah.
And the book comes out
next year.
Yeah. Rough sort of time?
Let's go middle of next year.
Middle of next year.
But what's the deadline anyway?
It's a way to focus.
Come see, comes up.
It's a necessary thing to get shit done, I find. To prevent the procrastination. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah.
There you go. Suzanne, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for listening.